We're live today.
Yes.
Because it's Tuesday at noon.
And we're back from our vacays.
We're back together again.
Yeah.
It's been 3 weeks.
I know, it's so long.
It was a good break.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just cruising in towards the end of winter. And I'm kind of liking that Texas is getting this nice cold blast to remind us that it's still winter. And our friends on the East Coast and in the North, I'm so sorry of the cold you're dealing with. But
Yeah.
At least we have something to relate to. It was literally 36 degrees, 32. It went down to 32 last night. So we're feeling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cold out right now. But we are still seeing a shift, even though like the temperature might be colder. Down here in the south, we're seeing like the dandelions grow up through the grass. We're seeing the buds on the trees come out. So like the shift is
clovers
happening.
everywhere.
The clovers, which we'll talk more about next week for St. Patrick's Day. So that shift is happening whether the weather is kind of cooperating or not. So we just want to kind of notice that. So we're starting to shift a little bit, right? This whole season and temperature change doesn't happen overnight. It's very gradual. We're watching this gradual thing happen where another cold front will happen, and then in the next week it'll be warm again, right? And start to warm up. So it's really important that we start balancing, and on these cold days we're still eating maybe more of those warm foods, but when it gets a little cooler or warmer out, maybe we start to add in more of these springtime type of things. Mm-hmm. And cruciferous vegetables are the perfect vegetable to help you do that because they're a winter growing vegetable, but at the same time they support the body detoxing, which is a springtime thing. So that's what they're so good for. And I
didn't realize how many of them there were.
I know.
Until, discovering that the whole radish family was all cruciferous. This was all new to me this week.
Yeah.
So, we're learning with you guys too. And it's amazing.
When I think it was this last year, when I realized arugula was cruciferous and radishes were cruciferous, and I was like, wait a second, is everything in the grocery store cruciferous? And it almost is. Like, there are so many, and you could just like Google it, or watch our episode because we talk all about them in our episode too. But it's kind of endless, and that just again shows how important they are for us. That we have them in every way possible that we can.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a good point, Megan. Like, when nature gives you so many different forms of it, like it's saying, if you don't like this one, try this one. And if you don't like this one, try this one. So there's like something for everybody. So find the one, because I know people who are like, I just can't do kale. And like, that's fine.
Okay.
There's so many other ones that you can do. Mm-hmm. And, find more than one, because we don't always want to, variety is the spice of life. Mm-hmm. And it's also, tapping into all the superpowers of all the different ones. They all have their own superpower. So, I know people who are like spinach, and it's like, well, try some other greens too. There's so many other greens other than spinach.
Yeah,
right?
We need to diversify. And another thing that people, get caught up in is sticking, like Cara saying, with maybe one, or just sticking with that food group and eating it every day and making one mistake. And that big mistake is eating it raw. And this is something we talked a bit about. So we're going to answer a few questions that we've gotten about that. What actually qualifies cruciferous veggies as being raw? The reason that that's a little, that's not the greatest thing to do. If you have it every once in a while raw, like a raw kale salad or a raw smoothie, or green juice with kale or any kind of broccoli, they even put in green juices and things like that, that's raw, or crudité, or like as a snack you're eating raw broccoli. Every once in a while, of course, it's not going to be a big deal, but what is happening, especially with these trends...
Even often, it's not going to be a big deal.
Right.
But when it's to the extreme.
When it's to the extreme, and that's what's happening, because kale got really popular. Green smoothies and juicing got really popular. Kale salads got really popular. So now all of a sudden people are eating it every day because they think...
Brussels sprout salads,
yeah. And so it got really popular, so people are literally eating it all morning. Like, they start every single morning off with their green smoothie. They throw in a handful of kale, then they go to work, and then they might have kale salad for lunch, and that could be their daily routine. And what they're not
And where
aware
you
of,
think you're doing good.
right, is that raw cruciferous inhibits iodine uptake in the thyroid. So one of our questions that we got from Allie was, if you blend it, does that break down the cell wall? So then in that case...
Because we talked about massaging. Does, but we're massaging with salt.
Right. So what Cara and I talked about is there's a difference between breaking down the cell wall and making a chemical reaction happen. So yes, maybe a Vitamix blender is like known to break down the cell wall of things. But when you still take in that raw kale, that chemical reaction is still happening in the body where an iodine is inhibited from the thyroid. When that chemical reaction turns off is when heat is applied, or salt also turns off that chemical reaction.
Look how salt even creates such a chemical reaction when you put it in boiling water, right? Like you see the chemistry happening right there. So it's something to learn from.
Yeah, it boils up.
That's like the reaction.
So what we could do for you right now, but instead we're just going to talk about it. And I've done this experiment before, if you take some cabbage, like cut up some cabbage and put it in 2 different bowls. And like we were talking about before, we want to massage, if we have a kale salad, we want to massage it. We're not just massaging it with nothing on it. We want to actually sprinkle a bit of salt on it, then massage. That's a true massage. The difference between the two is that if you just massage the one with nothing really happens. Like, sure, you might be bruising it a little bit, or breaking down the cell wall a little bit, but nothing's happening. The one with the salt, you're doing the exact same thing. It shrinks. It starts releasing the juices, the liquids, and of course, if it sits, that's when it turns into sauerkraut or kimchi that starts fermenting it.
Oh my God, I should have brought my bowl down. The bowl that I use to make my sauerkraut, you guys, it looks like it's like bigger than the stovetop. It looks like Clifford the Big Red Dog's dog bowl. It's giant. I bought it at an Asian store, and it's made for making kimchi. And so it's gigantic. And I fill that whole thing with cabbage. And after just letting the salt sit on it for just a few minutes, and then as soon as I start to touch it and move it around, like the whole thing just goes whoop, and and then I can fit it in the, like, people go, it's going to fit in that little thing. I'm like, yeah, watch this, and it all just shrinks down.
Exactly.
Cool.
It's so cool because salt acts like a heat would act. So it's changing it on that chemical level, and we're not chemists, but it's happening. And so that's very different than just chopping it up either with your knife or with your mouth or with a blender. That's different.
Yeah. And it's visually, you can see that, and also just the taste. I mean, you can, the taste completely changes too. And you can feel like that chalky, rubbery kind of feeling is more when it's raw, right?
Yes.
Is that the right description? Yeah. So
yeah.
Something different. And because the other question we got, Natalie, remember, commented about, like it's really more when it's to the extreme that you're doing this. And so we want to make that clear, that because I'm a big promoter of green smoothies, not in the winter, but when it's right for you. But I love taking a break from them. And also when I'm teaching my green smoothies, I'm also teaching you to change up the greens that you use. In, like, sometimes put lettuce in there, sometimes put spinach in there, sometimes put kale, sometimes put collard greens. So change it up and not just doing the same one every time.
Yep. And if you are, if you want to know what those cruciferous veggies are, if you want to be doing green smoothies for like a few weeks, just see if maybe, collards are a cruciferous vegetable, kale, arugula. So
chard also?
Yeah, Swiss chard. So look really, them up and just see, because again, if you're eating those every single day, that's what we're kind of talking about. So
what are the greens that are not cruciferous? Spinach and the lettuces?
Spinach, lettuces.
Got it.
Well, like endive. I don't know.
I'm trying to think.
But that's how many cruciferous veggies.
And there's many variations of spinach, and there's many variations of lettuces. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the other thing, is we also weren't blending foods like this in the past. So like this is also a new trend and fad, and these are the downsides of them. They're amazing, right? And it can be a healthy way to get a lot of veggies in and do it for a short period of time, but it's also not traditionally how foods were eaten. So go back to basics always. Cook those things that need to be cooked, which are cruciferous veggies. And if you're not going to cook it, massage it with some salt, and that cooks it by default. Because it's not the cell wall we're worried about when it comes to iodine intake, it's the chemical structure of it. And that chemical structure only breaks down when there's a chemical reaction between heat and salt. Then the iodine uptake issue doesn't happen.
Okay.
That was a really good question, Allie. Thank you.
And gosh, we keep coming back to this. And the other thing is incorporating seaweed.
Yeah.
If you are a big green smoothie drinker and raw kale eating person, you especially should be incorporating seaweed into your diet, whether it be soaking, using it to cook your grains in your soups, throw it in your stir fry, eat sushi rolls, like whatever you need to do, get it in there.
Miso soup. So there's different types of seaweed, and I mean, I honestly think we probably need to do a seaweed episode, but we're trying just to cook with it a lot and show you guys how we cook with it, so that you see it just spans across everything.
And it's benevolent, like you don't notice it. And if anything, it just adds like a deeper flavor, but you don't taste the flavor of it or anything. So it's like, why not?
The one that we cook with all the time is called kombu. It's KOMBU. That you can order online or buy it at Whole Foods. Throw it in with whatever you cook.
And that one doesn't disintegrate. I have used other ones, and I'm trying to think of the names of them. It's not on the tip of my tongue, but other ones I've used do disintegrate into the grains, and that's fine too. It just turns into like mush in there, and it tastes good. But people are like, what are those brown specks in the rice? That's what it is.
So it's giving your body the right amount of iodine, because when it's coming in as a whole food, that's natural. Your body recognizes it, takes what it needs, and gets rid of the rest. If you're supplementing, even if it's the highest quality supplemental iodine in the world, it's so concentrated, the body's like, I don't know what to do with it. And it's going to throw especially if you already have a thyroid condition, it's going to freak it out even more. And kind of going into thyroid conditions further. So this has been the number one diagnosed condition or disease in the United States in the 2000s. So another reason for that is they've actually adjusted the numbers. So when you get tested to see where your thyroid hormones are, they've actually lowered the test so more people qualify, so they get to prescribe you more Synthroid and more of these thyroid hormones. Yay! Which is awesome. They're so nice. They really care about your health and not about their pocket. But that's a side note. So, and it is an issue. And the reason thyroid conditions are an issue is we've depleted our soil. So we used to get iodine from our soil, but because of our modern farming practices, we don't get it there. We also don't take advantage of sea vegetables, which is what we've just been talking about, which other cultures, like Asian cultures, do. And they have almost no thyroid conditions in their countries. So that's happening. Another thing is, especially with something like Hashimoto's, and which is hypothyroid autoimmune disease. So hypothyroid means the thyroid is slowing down production of the thyroid hormones. What that means is there's nothing wrong with your thyroid. Your thyroid is so smart. It's doing that because you're not slowing down. So it's going to try to slow you down. You're not slowing down, and it doesn't want to burn out and like leave you dead on the ground, so it's going to stop producing a lot of the hormones to try to reserve energy.
So resting is important.
Very important with a hypothyroid condition, and stress is usually a big part of that, because stress is something that's autoimmune, isn't it? Well, Hashimoto's is.
Yeah. So, and these are all, I mean, you guys, I live with 2 autoimmune diseases. I have that, and I live healthily with it, but it takes extra work. I'm much more sensitive to getting sick and to wearing out and to tiring, and I have to take extra precaution and really amp up things for myself to live like a normal person. So, don't surrender to these diseases. There's ways to be proactive about it and live normally and not make it define you.
Yeah. And when the doctor tests you and you come back with maybe some of these things, and they say this cannot be healed unless we remove your thyroid, give you radioactive iodine, or you're on Synthroid or other thyroid medications for the rest of your life. Those aren't answers. Don't take that as an answer. That is them saying in a fancy way and an intimidating way of saying they don't know what to do for you. So they're going to give you something you have to take for the rest of your life, or they're going to take the organ out of your body because they don't know what else to do. And if the organ's gone, then in their mind, the issue is gone. And that's not true. The issue is not gone. If anything, it can continue and proliferate the condition even further and make it more difficult to heal. So when it comes to cruciferous veggies, as much as a lot of doctors might say avoid them because they inhibit thyroid or iodine in the thyroid, what did we just learn? If we eat them raw all the time, they will. But if we cook them down, they won't.
I'm going to heal you.
And actually what they do is they help clear the liver. So this is how we were talking about they help with detox. So they help us detox, which is really good for springtime. And with a lot of thyroid conditions, another issue that's happening and something that people have to take synthetically is the T4 hormone. So that conversion from T3 to T4 happens in the liver. And if the liver is congested from stress, toxic lifestyle, pollution, alcohol, poor quality food, anything like that, stress as well, like a lot of stress has to do with this, the liver doesn't have time to clear everything, so that conversion from T3 to T4 can't happen. So cruciferous vegetables clear that out so that can happen, if that makes sense. So this is one of the avenues that you can help heal your thyroid. Another avenue, add seaweed in, right? Lower stress, right? So all of these things, they are very simple and very subtle, but this is how you can start to bring your body back into balance naturally. So then the thyroid will feel comfortable producing the proper amount of hormones again.
That sounds nice.
That sounds nice. What else were we getting? So, and the same is true for cancers as well. And actually doctors are catching on to that. They'll say to a lot of cancer patients, eat a lot of cruciferous veggies, because they're seeing that happens, that it clears, it helps the phase 2 detox of the liver. It helps open and clear those pathways. So it's supporting, it's also loaded with fiber. So it's really going to help the colon sweep everything out. So if there's any, all of us have cancer cells in us at one point or another. Okay. So having cancer is very
We're all
common.
fighting it, right? It's just an irregular reproduction of cells.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, is your body allowing and being able to get rid of it? Or is your body so congested it can't, and then it stores and it starts to grow into a tumor and get bigger and bigger and migrate throughout the body? That's showing that our detoxification pathways aren't clear. So this is why cruciferous can prevent and also help rid cancer from the body.
Awesome.
I love them.
I love them too.
I'm on the board of cruciferous veggies.
I really probably eat them every day.
And you
I
really
put them
notice
into every
the
meal.
difference.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to get into for spring. My slaw salads using cabbage salad is it's so good. We're gonna cook it. We're gonna use salt on it.
Salt. Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be massaged.
Another thing cruciferous vegetables happen with the same concept in the liver is estrogen dominance. So that's very common in women, again, because usually high cortisol levels lower progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone work in a ratio, so cortisol will take from progesterone because it needs more hormone to build, and progesterone is your feel-good hormone, lowers that, so then estrogen naturally increases. And estrogen dominances lead to painful periods, infertility, PCOS, endometriosis, a lot of things that women suffer with is an estrogen dominance. So if that's something that you have, even, high androgens like testosterone and other hormones like that, all can help get out of the body with cruciferous vegetables.
All right. Go cruciferous vegetables.
Love them.
Cool. Well,
yeah,
I think that's all. We covered our questions. I think that's it for today, right?
I think so, yeah.
We just released our Mardi Gras video this morning. We have been releasing on Wednesdays, but this week we released on Tuesday so that it was appropriately released on Fat Tuesday. And it's all about cravings, and so this week we'll be covering cravings and indulging.
Yeah.
So please send us your questions, maybe ways to, healthier ways to satisfy your indulgences, anything like that, reasons for your cravings, and it should be fun.
Yeah, it's a really awesome episode. We talk about it all. So, yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. We will see you next week.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.